Welcome to Southern Ghost Stories. I am the American Haunt Historian, Alan Searcy, accompanied by my good friend Lonesome Lee Bogan in the historic Richland Building in Portland, Tennessee. We're rocking and rolling tonight, aren't we, Lee?
Yes, we are rocking and rolling, Alan.
Or we're trying to. I think one of the wheels fell off a little while ago.
Well, we've had some technical difficulties here, and but you know what? We shall overcome.
That's right. We'll get this right, hopefully, one of these days.
Oh, let me do my intro.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Go for it.
Welcome to Southern Ghost Stories. Here's your host, Alan Searcy.
Man, Casey, I'm making nothing on you, pal. Yeah, this is going to be a fun show. We got lots of fun stuff to talk about. First off, a few announcements. So the Ghost of Gallatin Haunted Tour, I've got dates live on ghostofgallatin.com. Had some folks reach out about taking tours this October. Everybody knows I do the spooky haunted ghost tour in Gallatin, Tennessee. So yeah, check out ghostofgallatin.com. I got tickets available pretty much every Friday, Saturday. Specialized tours, private tours, hit me up. I can do those for you too. Also, a new book dropped a few days ago, The Resurrection of Knox Martin. So you've heard of Frankenstein, right, Lee?
Absolutely.
So in Nashville, Tennessee, 1879, there was a guy who was found guilty of double murder. And while he was in jail, a doctor came to him and said, "Hey, I'll give you some silver if you let me try to resurrect your body after you're executed." So, I mean, you got nothing to lose. What would you do? You take the money and run, or take the money and be hung, I guess?
Take the money and be hung. Old Frankenstein.
Yeah, but anyway, Knox, he took the deal, and so after the execution, he was hanged by the gallows in South Nashville. And you got to think, back then in 1879, an execution is like a spectacle. It's like the county fair comes to town. When they hanged Knox Martin in South Nashville, they had thousands of people lined up or sitting on this hill watching down by the creek where he was executed. So it was a big-time spectacle. And finally, they hanged him. And after he was pronounced dead, the doctors rushed him up there to take his body because they were going to try to resurrect him. Well, the sheriff said, "No, wait," because he knew they were going to try to revive him. So, he just a few more minutes longer than he should just to make sure he still wasn't alive. So after a few minutes, the sheriff gave him the green light. They cut him down. They took him back to this shed behind the barn, or behind the execution site. And they took his clothes off. They applied galvanized current to his body, which is a galvanized battery's electricity. And once the battery was hooked up to him, his eyes opened, his mouth moved, he shot off the table. And for like 45 seconds, he appeared to be alive. Well, once the battery died, Knox, his body fell back to the table. So the doctors, they put him in a coffin, they rushed him over to the medical college, and they performed the same experiment. But unlike before, where the first experiment was performed, you had thousands of people descending on this little shed to watch it, because everybody's there to watch the execution, and they see him looking like he's alive. So they go to the college, and they do the same thing, but no one's talking. Well, a few days later, someone in West Nashville, they see Knox Martin walking. They say he's going to Kansas. A couple days after that, they see an African-American man who's walking to Alabama, and he tells the guy he was just hanged in Nashville. So all these things are going on in Nashville. Is he alive? Is he dead? And then a prominent businessman got a piece of rope and a tintype photograph that was taken of Knox in the jail. So all these things are showing up in the Tennessee, and the local newspaper is putting out, these articles every day. Knox Martin's alive. He was seen here. He was seen there. This photograph was taken of Knox. This rope was sent to this official. So I'm 99.9% sure Knox Martin was not revived, but you have all these grandiose, spectacular headlines in the Tennessean saying this guy's still alive. So the book is called The Resurrection of Knox Martin, and it's kind of like a historical fiction. I play with a few things, lots of element of like voodoo, of religion. There's a grisly double murder, but it's a lot of fun, and it's based on a real Frankenstein story from South Nashville. So have you ever heard anything about that, the Frankenstein story in Nashville?
I have not aware of it whatsoever.
You see, Galvanism was a thing. Like, after Mary Shelley published Frankenstein, well, before that, there was some experiments, I think, in Scotland. And she read about those experiments. A guy named Andrew Urey was experimenting on a corpse. There's a guy who was hanged for being a thief. Well, there's like a portrait online where these people, they're watching the the galvanism experiment takes place, and like the eyes are opening off this corpse, and everybody's fleeing, just running. It's like an old photograph from the 1700s. So Mary Shelley reads about this stuff, and that's why she wrote Frankenstein. She was inspired by all this Frankenstein stuff that was going on in Scotland. So it's going on there. All these doctors finally read Frankenstein, and over in Europe and the United States, these doctors are thinking, I can revive a body too. So that's why they went to go get Knox and try to revive him. I've written a lot of books, and there's Frankenstein stories in Knoxville, Tennessee, Franklin, Tennessee, St. Louis, Connecticut, Chicago. There's Frankenstein stories all over the country.
So there's not just one Frankenstein.
No. I mean, that was, and really, what was it? It wasn't called Frankenstein. It was called something else. But like in the book, he's called the Creature. Okay. Frankenstein is actually the doctor who performs the experiments. So it's not really Frankenstein.
I wonder if he really wanted to be called Frankenstein.
Frankenstein? I don't really know.
Well, there's a movie called Young Frankenstein. It's a spoof on the old black and white Frankenstein movie, and it's hilarious.
Okay.
He says, "Don't call me Frankenstein. My name is Frankenstein."
Frankenstein?
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I was talking about the new book, The Resurrection of Knox Martin. It's a lot of fun, and I'm excited about it, and it'll be out here for spooky season. So we got lots to talk about today, and I had some plans to go over something else first, but let's take a hard turn. And I'll tell you guys about the Lehman House in St. Louis, Missouri. We're going to have a St. Louis theme today.
Sounds good.
So St. Louis, the old town on the Mississippi River, it was an old trading post. It built up. Everybody's coming there. It's like what they call it, the gateway city of the West. Everybody moved to Missouri, moving west. So over there in St. Louis, there's a place called Lafayette Square. And it's where like the wealthy and the elite of St. Louis moved to. Well, in 1862, Edward Rouse was a bookkeeper in Boston. Well, 1862, the Civil War is going. It destroyed his business up north. So he relocated to St. Louis to work as a paymaster of the Union Army. That's steady work working for the Army during the Civil War, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, after the war, Rouse got involved in real estate. And he saw the opportunity in an upscale community there in Lafayette Square, which is, the kind of uppity part of St. Louis. So they established this community called Benton Place, right there by Lafayette Square. And I guess to compare it to like Middle Tennessee, it's like Brentwood, kind of stuffy. That's where all the rich folks live. Yeah. Some of Lincoln's cabinet members bought houses and lived there. It was a place to be. So Edward Rouse, he built this opulent 22-room Romanesque revival brick mansion there, and it's amazing. So Rouse, in 1894, after the Civil War, 30 years later, he lived there for a long time, but eventually he developed stomach cancer, and it got so bad he couldn't eat. Well, eventually he starved to death in 1899. Well, after that, a guy named Frederick Lehman bought the house, and Lehman, kind of like Rouse, he was a wealthy guy. He was rubbing elbows with some prominent people. He was the president of the American Bar Association. He's doing all right by himself. He was the president of the St. Louis Public Library and director of the 1904 World's Fair. He's got a pretty good gig there. Well, President Taft went to Lehman and he asked him, "Hey, if I nominated you for the Supreme Court, would you be good with that?" Well, surprisingly, Mr. Lehman told him no. He thought that he'd get bored in that job and asked to be the Solicitor General instead. Do you know what a Solicitor General is?
Mm-mm.
I didn't. I had to look it up, too.
No, I didn't.
Google is my friend.
I could have pretended, but...
Yeah. No. I'm not smart either. So the Solicitor General, what he does is he would try the case before the Supreme Court on behalf of the United States government. He was like the nation's chief lawyer. That's a pretty neat gig, too. Anyway, he served 2 years in that, and he kind of saw the writing on the wall that Woodrow Wilson was going to be the next president, and Taft was kind of on the outs. So he backed off and back to St. Louis. And when he went back to St. Louis, he started this book club. And one of his really good friends that came to this book club was a guy named Samuel Clemens. Have you heard of Samuel Clemens?
That sounds familiar.
It should, because it's Mark Twain.
There you go.
I did know that one. I learned that back in high school.
Sort of.
Yeah, but Mark Twain, he was in St. Louis a lot, and he loved telling stories about the Mississippi River and Tom Sawyer and all that.
Now, do we know why he went by that name?
Mark Twain?
Why does he have two names?
I think it's just being an author. Some authors do that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And Twain, I'm trying to think. Mark, there's a reason for being Mark Twain. I think it's like the units of measurement on a boat. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wonder if he's any kin to Shania.
I don't know. I never saw him wearing those shirts with his belly button hanging out.
Right, okay. I don't care who you are, that's funny, right?
We got Larry the Cowboy Guy in studio today. But anyway, while he was there, Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain stayed at the house. Ulysses Grant, President Taft, they were also friends. They stayed in the house too. So in 1930, he passed away in the house. And after he died, it became a boarding house for several decades. But in 1899, the Lehman House became a bed and breakfast. And it's very, very haunted. So when I stayed there, when was it? It's 2023. But anything, weird things happen there all the time. When I checked in, I was talking to the lady who runs the place. She was telling me that one morning, her and a friend were sitting in the dining room, and they were just talking. They're the only ones in the house. And all of a sudden, they heard like this large wagon roll across the floor above them, upstairs. So they go upstairs, looking around, and not only was there nobody in the house, but there was carpet on the floor.
Okay.
So even if there was a large wagon upstairs, which there wasn't, it would have been muffled by that carpet.
Right.
But she heard the sound of a wagon roll overhead. But anyway, it's all kinds of weird stuff like that. She told me that guests have stayed there in the middle of the night. Like there's a desk in one of the rooms, a chair that has wheels on it would just like roll out in the middle of the night. Just like, actually, I don't think it was on wheels. It just scooted out.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Woke up the guest.
Better.
You know, if it's better, it scared the fire out of me.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, but they say that there's orbs you capture all the time in pictures when you take them there. So when I stayed there, I had my own experience. It was around 3 o'clock in the morning. I was laying there, and I guess I was half asleep, but I heard it sounded like someone dropped a bag of marbles right above me. I think I was the second floor or the third floor above me, and I heard this like boom, like a scattering of marbles.
So you heard them like rolling around?
Yeah, it was a really weird sound. Like I don't know what to compare it to. It was like a bag of marbles hitting the floor and kind of just scattering. So the next morning I got up and I told the lady who runs the place, I know there's some ghost stories. This is what happened to me last night. That's what I heard. So she started snickering. And I said, what's going on? She's like, well, honey, you're the only one here tonight.
Oh.
So it was just me there.
Wow.
So I did some paranormal investigating while I was there. This is 2023. And I have this app on my iPad. It's called Necrophonic. Have you ever heard of it?
I have a necro something. Let me look real quick. It's necro. No, mine's necrometer.
Okay. Well, supposedly the Necrophonic, what it does, there's built-in sound boxes, and it makes these different things. And I'm not sure the science behind it, but the spirits can communicate with whoever's there with these sounds in this iPad.
Right.
And I've been in some really weird places, and I've heard it say some really incredible things. So it's almost break time. Let's go to a break. I'll tell you what happened in this investigation when we come back.
Well, let's cross our fingers and hope the brakes work.
All right, let's do it.
Here we go.
No one told them.
All right, we are back with Southern Ghost Stories with Lonesome Lee Bogan and Alan Searcy here
That's right.
at the Richland Building in Portland, Tennessee. So before the break, I was talking about some investigating I did at the old place in the Lehman Mansion in St. Louis, Missouri. So when I stayed there in February 2023, I used the Necrophonic app, and I told you earlier, the iPad, it makes these sounds, and they can produce words or whatever.
Yeah.
But I've seen it do some really wild stuff. Well, when I was there, I asked questions. And I try to say yes or no, make it simple for the spirits to communicate with me if they want to. So the theory is that Edward Rouse, the guy who built the home, is supposedly the spirit that is most active there, or the one they believe that is there. So when I was there doing the investigation, I said, Edward, are you here? And as clear as day, my iPad went, no.
Oh.
Yeah. So I said, would you mind if I stayed in your house? Again, it was no. So Edward, I guess he's a pretty hospitable guy. He didn't mind me coming from Nashville to stay in his big, lovely mansion. But something another question I asked, I said, it's cold. Would you mind if I lit a fire? It was in February. It was really cold that night. And he said no. Once again, pretty much everything I say is no. So when I do ghost hunting, or I don't do as much as I used to. I used to go all the time, but I really scaled back. I would always ask, who is the president of the United States?
Mm-hmm.
And that question will get a lot of weird responses if it's an active location. I remember I did a place in Murfreesboro, and the name we got was Polk. and just happened to be the house we were in was James K. Polk's brother-in-law's house.
Okay.
I did one in Hendersonville in this house that was built in 1806, and as clear as day, we got Lincoln. So that's,
I remember you telling me that.
yeah, that's a question that will get a response if there's something there in its active location. But that night I said, who was the president of the United States? And it said Johnson. And that's kind of a trick question because Andrew Johnson was the president from 1865 to 1869, and Lyndon B. Johnson was president in 1963 to 1969.
Right.
So which one was it?
For real.
Yeah, so, I mean, I thought about this, and I did a lot of digging, and I told you the house was a boarding house for a while.
Right.
And I'm wondering if maybe a boarder just passed away there in the 60s when it was President Johnson. So, who knows? That's just my theory.
So there's no history on that?
And it's hard to find newspaper articles or death notices from like someone who lived in a boarding house just passed away.
Documentation.
Yeah, they wouldn't, unless it was like Lehman or Rouse, the two guys with money.
Yeah.
But someone living in a boarding house, probably two nickels screwed together, they won't put that in the paper.
Right.
But anyway, the Lehman House, it's a beautiful place to stay there in a beautiful part of St. Louis, and you should go. The lady who runs it, she's really sweet, and she'll make a mean breakfast for you. And it's also by Lafayette Park, which I mentioned, and it's right around the corner from the Lehman House. And it opened in 1851. It's the oldest urban park west of Mississippi. So I found this old newspaper article where right after the park opened, there was a boy who lived right around the corner. And every day he'd go to the park to play and feed the ducks. Well, one day he went up there without his mother, and he didn't come back. Well, the mother heard screaming. She rushed over to the park. Her little boy had drowned in the pond. There's all kinds of ponds over there. You can feed the dogs, go swimming, go fishing, whatever. So shortly after that, people would hear giggling and laughter. The legend has it swings on the swing sets, which kind of just swing back and forth on days when it's not windy. I actually talked to a lady who lived in the area. She told me she was walking her dog one day and she saw this swing, like this swing up in the air and heard like giggling. She looked around and there's nobody on the playground but her. It's just her and her dog walking through. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, haunted playground is kind of fun. Like some Scooby-Doo kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Right.
So, one of my favorite stories in St. Louis. Have you heard about the St. Louis vampire?
Yes.
You have?
I have heard about it, vaguely.
What have you heard?
I really don't know. Maybe on one of those ghost shows.
Okay.
Because I watch a lot of ghost TV.
You should have said she's a vampire from St. Louis. How did you roll with that?
Vampire.
There you go. Excellent answer,
I
Lee.
do it the whole time.
So when I wrote, I got a book about St. Louis. I should have mentioned that earlier. Ghost Stories and Graveyard Tales of St. Louis is one of my favorite books that I've done because there's so much wild stuff. There's grave robbing. There's surviving bodies, electricity. Talked about that a little while ago. But there's a vampire in St. Louis. And it's hard to find vampire stories in America. There's a few. I'm actually working on a vampire book. It's on my back burner. I'll get to it one day, maybe next year.
Where do most of the stories come from, if not?
Old newspapers, people telling me things, go to archives.
But not America.
Hey, a lot of that stuff's overseas, it seems like.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, a lot of stuff's over there in Europe, Germany. There was a countess who supposedly was drinking blood from young ladies trying to steal their youth. Yeah.
Okay.
I did find a story from Massachusetts. There was a guy, I think it's back in the 70s or 80s. He killed his grandmother and shot her with silver bullets, and I think he drank her blood. I just started digging on the story a couple weeks ago. But yeah, he was convinced. I think he believed he had been spoken to by a vampire in a dream that told him he was a vampire and he had to kill his grandmother. It's something off there. I'm not really sure. But anyway, yeah, St. Louis is a vampire story. There's vampire stories in New Orleans, but St. Louis, there's a great vampire story.
Come on.
So in late 1863, there's a Swiss immigrant named Elizabeth Mund, and she had a pretty rough life. She was only 23, 24 years old, but she had lost 3 children, and she began to feeling awful. She went to a doctor, and the doctor diagnosed her with dancing of the heart. You ever had dancing of the heart, Lee?
I've never heard of dancing of the heart.
Well,
I've heard of wild heartbeats and what's the word for palpitations, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Never dancing.
Well, anyway, she had some kind of condition, and it made her skin turn abnormally pale, and one of her crystal blue eyes, like, just turned gray. So, like, something was really wrong with her. Well, she went to see a doctor there in St. Louis, and he advised her the only way she could be cured of this ailment was to drink blood of a dying man. Have you ever drank blood from a dying man, Lee?
Just once.
Just once? Did it make you feel better?
Yes, man, I felt great. Like a shot of B12.
Well, once she got this diagnosis from this doctor, poor Elizabeth started showing up at the jail when they had executions. So, I mean, that was during the Civil War. They were hanging Confederate soldiers, bushwhackers. Bushwhackers back then were people who weren't really rebels or Confederates. They were just kind of like Confederate leaning, but they would take pot shots at Union soldiers out in the woods or at bridges or whatever. And it was a big thing. It was a big thing in Sumner County, in Tennessee especially, but it happened really all over. But a lot of bushwhackers were taken to St. Louis, and they were put on trial, and they were executed. Well, she went to, on April 18th, 1863, she went to the jail and spoke to Corporal John Abshire. Corporal John Abshire was a rebel who's going to be hanged that day. Police Captain Will Bishop, he saw this lady crying, and he felt sorry for her, and he advised her to come back a week later because another rebel was going to be hanged, Valentine Hansen. Well, he told her, so look, I want to help you, and if you can get the blood, that's great, but you got to have the family's permission or the doctor who was overseeing the hanging to sign off on this. I'll let you go talk to him, but it's not my call. So poor Elizabeth, she went back that week later to talk to Hansen's family. And that day she spoke to Hansen's wife. What do you think Hansen's wife said about letting her drink some of his husband's blood?
I don't want to.
She said no.
I was close.
Yeah. And not only did she say no, she was offended and began yelling at Elizabeth. Like, why would you even ask this? So the hanging still took place, and it was kind of like a carnival there too. A lot of folks there. Well, Elizabeth, she was persistent. She rushed to the scaffold, once they cut the rope that dropped the hatch there, and she rushed to the doctor and said, please, let me drink his blood.
Ew.
The doctor said, ma'am, I'm sorry, you cannot drink his blood. Get back.
Jeez.
Well, a few months goes by, and August 19th, they're going to hang William Jackson. He was another bushwhacker. Bushwhackers were a thing, I told you. And this bushwhacker, he was going to be hanged, put to death there in St. Louis. And that day of the execution, she got up really early, like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. She went to the marshal, Mr. Joe Koff, and said, hey, look, this is what I'm going through. I'm dying. I have to drink the blood of a dying man. Please, can I have some blood from this guy, Mr. Jackson, who's going to be hanged in a little while? Well, he told her to come back at 11:30. He'd hook her up.
Oh, wow.
Now, Elizabeth, she was so excited. She went home.
Does that make him a blood dealer?
Well, I'm not done with the story. Let me get there. So she went back home. She probably was sitting on pins and needles the whole time. She's so excited finally to get to drink the blood. Well, when she returned at 11:30, she got some bad news. William Jackson, the Confederate bushwhacker, was hanged at 10 o'clock.
Oh.
She was so persistent and such a pain in the butt that these Union officials, they moved the execution dates to keep her at bay. So no one really knows what happened to her, but there are no more sightings of her at the jail, and they believe that she eventually just passed away.
So apparently she didn't get to drink blood.
I don't guess so, unless she did, and she lived forever, and she went somewhere else and changed her name, and it's like True Blood, where she went off to New Orleans or something. I don't know.
Gotcha.
But vampires are a thing. I mean, it's not a thing, but it is a thing. I mean, it's a wild, popular thing, and with True Blood, and what's that, Twilight. They stay in the subculture there, pop culture, and people love vampires. So
I don't think I could get along.
Well, go back. You mentioned something earlier, Lee, about how you drank the blood of a dying man one time. Can you go back a little more in depth on that story?
Sure. Well, I was feeling rough and needed a little. I was low on blood.
Low on iron.
I checked my levels and just needed it. And I needed like a shot glass.
Where did you find this dying man?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I can't even. I'm not that good at the morgue.
The morgue.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was hooked up with this guy that worked at the funeral home, and man, I don't even want to keep going.
Is that a police car just pulled up back here lead to the station?
Yeah, they're listening.
We probably better go to break, shouldn't we?
Yeah, well, we got another minute.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to lock the doors, make sure the cops don't get in here.
Yeah, well, just so we make this clear, this is not true. I did not drink blood
Of a dying man.
of a dying man.
He was still alive, right?
Of any man.
Oh, okay. No blood was partaken by Lonesome Lee.
That's correct.
Yet.
That was, ooh, man. You putting that on me here tonight. Let's go to break. Man.
All right.
You're making me uncomfortable. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Southern Ghost Stories. Here's your host, Alan Searcy.
Man, got a great voice for radio, Lee. All right. So we're talking about some St. Louis ghost stories and just, I guess, macabre in general. So if you listen to my show, if you've been around me, you've seen the books I've written, I love talking about grave robbing. It's just the weirdest, wildest, most fun thing that I've ever encountered.
Are you a little bit sick there?
I am. I don't know what happened to me. I had a great family. My mom and dad loved me and raised me in the church. I thought I turned out okay until I went down this rabbit hole about grave robbing a couple years ago. So, yeah, when I did these books out in the Midwest, I have 3 books about ghost stories in Graveyard Tales Cincinnati, ghost stories in Graveyard Tales Chicago, and ghost stories in Graveyard Tales St. Louis. And a lot of the books are about grave robbing because it's this weird thing. I'll go out there like in St. Louis and you read these old newspapers and talking about the ghoul did this or they captured the ghoul or ghouls strike the cemetery. So I'm just thinking, what in the world is a ghoul? So you start digging, ghouls are grave robbers. And they were kind of a necessity. So in like 1870, you can make $20 a week as a laborer at the docks, or you can make $40 in one night stealing one cadaver and selling it to the medical college. These colleges had to have a steady stream of cadavers or they had to shut down. It's an industry operates in the shadows and it's a necessity. But it's all supply and demand. You have all this demand and very little supply. In a place like St. Louis, Cincinnati, Nashville, Chattanooga, I mean, every city. The way the laws were on the books, you only got bodies from prisons or hospitals if someone died and no one claimed their body in like 24 or 36 hours. So what would happen would be you'd only get a few bodies from the county each month. So these administrators of the colleges would go hire guys to go raid the graveyards. And they paid them really, really well, like I mentioned. So in St. Louis, in the late 19th century, there's a guy named Ernest Doepke. And when you look for him in old newspapers, his name is spelled Ernst, E-R-N-S-T. So I'm assuming they called him Ernest, but he might have been Ernst. I don't really know. But Mr. Doepke, either way, the weird spelling aside, in the late 19th century, he was a vault cleaner. He was also known as a privy cleaner. Have you ever cleaned any privies, Lee, back in your day?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. So the privies back then were outhouses. I guess it's like an outhouse before an outhouse, or it's a fancy outhouse.
2 holders.
Yeah. But anyway, Mr. Doepke, he was paid pretty well to go clean up these vaults and privies. Well, he made pretty good money, and he bought 10 acres in St. Peter's Cemetery there in northwest St. Louis. So with this new plot of land adjacent to the cemetery, he made a deal with the city to intern unclaimed bodies in the lot, and for his troubles, he was paid $7 for children under 10 and $9 for ages 11 and up.
Getting paid for bodies.
Yeah, to bury them. So that's roughly $250 to $300 per body, kind of just doing the math off the top of my head, in today's money. What's the inflation calculator or whatever? So, but Ernest Doepke was an astute businessman. He double dipped. So, in addition to that $7 children, $9 for adults, he made $25 per body for each one he sold to the college. And he shipped them off to Indianapolis, Louisville, Nashville, St. Louis. And that's like $850 in today's money.
For scientific stuff,
well, the medical colleges would have to, their next generation of doctors are coming up.
Okay.
And they dissect the bodies to learn anatomy and learn how to become doctors.
Splendid.
Yeah, so So he was making a killing, literally, selling these bodies to St. Louis and colleges all around the country. And what's really wild was he wasn't just selling the bodies. The caskets were worth a lot of money too. Resale. He would get gently used coffins.
Only used once.
You're right, they were. But they were gently used. And he would go to like the paupers' graveyards. They threw them in a pine box. Sometimes they didn't even use the pine box. They throw them in the ground. But they would go to like the big fancy cemeteries and dig up the coffins. And he'd sell them for a handsome profit. So while he was a sharp entrepreneur, Ernest, he wasn't very polished, right?
Right.
But his brother Henry, he was a very popular, very good businessman in St. Louis. He was a wholesale liquor distributor, and he had a partner named Christian Schelt. Well, in 1875, Henry Dopke passed away. Well, shortly after Ernest and his mother laid Henry to rest, Christian saw Ernest downtown. And they walked into the saloon, had a drink. He said, hey, I really miss your brother. I loved him very much. He was a great partner. He was a good friend to me. And Ernest is like, oh, well, I just saw him yesterday.
Ooh.
What? So him and Christian, they're drinking beer. They're talking. Ernest tells him, there are rumors that grave robbers are stealing bodies in the cemetery, where my brother was laid to rest. And, I just wanted to go check. Would you go check, Lee?
I'd have to. I'd just about have to.
All right, coming from a guy who drank blood at a truck stop.
I did not.
All right.
It was at Wendy's.
Wendy's, okay. So, anyway, Ernest goes to the graveyard late one night under cover of darkness. He digs up his brother.
Oh, Ernst.
Ernst or Ernest, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But he dug up his brother, and he's sitting there looking at the rotting corpse of his brother, and he gets a little sentimental. I mean, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And what else would you do but just grab a big chunk of his beard and take it home with you?
Keep going.
Anyway.
Leave me out of that one.
He wanted something to remember him by, so he took a big clump of hair from his brother's beard and yanked it out of his dead, decomposing face, and he put it in a box, and he stuck it in the closet. So he's telling his brother's business partner, Mr. Shelty, there about this, and he said, well, do you want to go see the beard? Would you want to go see the beard?
No.
I wouldn't want to go see the beard.
No, not me.
But you know who wanted to go see the beard?
Who wanted to go
Christian Shelty wanted to go see the beard.
That guy.
Yeah, he was that guy. Well, anyway, Ernest invited him back to his house, and Christian came over. And at that time, Ernest, his mother was living with him. His mother's in poor health, too. Well, they're sitting down, and Ernest said, I'll be right back. I'm going to go find the box. So Christian's just sitting there, looking at the walls, looking out the window. He hears some rattling around in the other room. He can't find the box. A little bit later, Ernest's mother found the box. She brought it in.
Oh.
She said, honey, do you want to see this beard?
Oh, no, geez.
So it's not just twisted where, Ernest went and dug up his brother's beard. His mother knew about it and had possession of the box.
I'll be dang.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's creepy.
Yeah. Anyway, his mom come in there holding the small box and, the beard. And when she showed it to Christian, I'm not sure if he wanted to hold it, but she opened the lid and he saw the beard. And he also saw like the dried clumps of skin,
flesh,
at the end of the beard, still inside the box.
Ouch.
So you know what Christian did? What would you do?
I just can't even fathom. What happened?
He went to the police department, which is what you should do.
He ratted.
Yeah. So Christian Shelty went to the police department and notified the police, and they notified the Board of Health. And the officials from the Board of Health in St. Louis, they paid Ernest a visit. So after that, authorities had Henry's body exhumed, and an investigation began. So sure enough, Ernest did do what he said he did. He went and he dug up his brother's remains. But instead, when he put him back down, he dug up the coffin, he dragged it up, but he didn't lay it back down flat. When they exhumed his brother's remains, the coffin was at a 45-degree angle.
Oh, my.
He just kind of dumped it and threw some dirt on it, and he was gone.
Right.
After he grabbed the clumps of the beard with the dried skin in it. So, but he didn't rebury him, and that got him in some trouble. He said he was in a hurry that night. I guess I would be too if I was in the graveyard by myself at 2 a.m. And,
looking around, make sure nobody sees you.
But officials, they were wondering, is Ernest, is he trying to sell his brother's body? That's what they're trying to figure out.
Okay, gotcha.
So, but they never could figure out, and I don't want to think that Ernest Oakey would have sold his brother's body.
I wouldn't want to think that.
And he had the opportunity, too, so I'm guessing he just didn't. He just wanted a clump of beer to take home to his...
That was what he was in the business of, so...
And how would you even tell your mother that you have your big hunk of your brother's beer when you come home? That's like a complete episode. Just imagine you walk in the door, hey, Mama, look at this.
Well, so it's even weirder is Mom saying, hey, you want to see this? You want to see this beard?
Yeah, well, there's another story with her. We'll get to that here in a little bit. So this story, as it's playing out, Ernest makes headlines in St. Louis, and he becomes known as the Prince of Body Snatchers.
Okay.
Which is a pretty cool name.
The Prince of Body.
Yeah, for a guy who goes around grabbing his brother's beard and showing it off around town. The Prince of Body Snatchers. I ought to get T-shirts of that made.
Yes.
So, yeah, the Prince of Body Snatchers, that was a big headline in the papers. So, a year later, 1876 in December, Ernest got popped leaving a cemetery with a wagon containing picks, spades, and you'll never guess what else was in the back of the wagon.
No.
There was a body wrapped in a blanket. Dun, dun, dun.
Who is it?
It's just some schlub that died, and they buried him. He dug him up and sold him to the college.
Body.
Yeah, I don't know who it was. But, so this is where it gets complicated. So, once again, the Prince of Body Snatchers is back in the news. And so, what do? They charge him with theft. Well, the problem is, what is a dead body worth?
To science, I would say.
Well, according to the laws of Missouri in the 1870s, a body has no value.
Okay.
So they can't charge him with theft of a corpse.
Oh.
So the DA charged him with grand larceny and stealing a $38 rosewood casket.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but that's where it gets even a little crazier. Ernst was convicted of stealing this $38 rosewood coffin, and he was sentenced to 2 years in prison there in Missouri.
Over a $30 box.
$38 box. In the inflation calculator, that's probably what? $400 if you had to guess in our money?
Yeah, probably.
That's that's a good chunk of money back then.
Yes, buddy.
So, but it gets better. He appeals. And let's take a break, and we'll come back, and we'll finish up Mr. Doakey and what happened to him. What do you think?
That sounds good to me. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Southern Ghost Stories. I'm your co-host, Lonesome Lee Bogan. Here's your main guy, Alan Searcy.
The main guy.
The main guy.
I think I'm a better name than main guy.
Here's your astute host.
Astute. That's a little bit better, I suppose. I feel very astute. Thank you,
Here's
Lee.
your very cool host, Alan.
You're like in middle school or something. Man, he's really cool. So, all right, before the break, we're talking about Ernest Doakey, and a subject near and dear to my heart, grave robbing. So, in 1800s, he was found guilty of stealing a rosewood coffin and sentenced to 2 years in the big house. Well, Mr. Doakey, he had some money. He made a lot of money digging up bodies and reselling them. And his attorney appealed, and his defense was able to prove that coffin that he was sentenced to 2 years in prison for was not a rosewood coffin.
Oh.
It was a simple pine box that was painted to look like rosewood. It's only worth $1 or $2.
Oh, did he carry on?
They let him off. He got off on a technicality. It's just so wild that a body has no value, and they got to charge you with stealing their coffin.
That's incredible. $1 box.
Yeah, eventually the laws would get changed, and it kind of varied, in each state, each city, each county. Like there's some wild stuff happening in Cincinnati that involved Benjamin Harrison's family. Like once the politicians' families started getting their loved ones remain stolen, they put the pressure on them to change the laws and make it stricter. Because there's a story, I think, in Murfreesboro or Eagleville in Rutherford County, Tennessee, where there's a guy and there is no law in the books. He gets to walk free. They're just trying to find like a technicality like the coffin to charge him for.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't mean to cut your momentum.
No, you're good.
Okay, with grave robbing being near and dear to your heart,
It is.
is this something you would actually consider doing?
Well, I was going to tell everybody there's a live demonstration October 4th in Gallatin, the city cemetery at 10 o'clock. So if you want to, there is no live demonstration. I'm just kidding.
Almighty.
I do.
I was getting my wallet out.
I did a presentation. I think it was in Nashville. I can't remember where it was.
You're dancing around my question, but go ahead.
No, I did a presentation in Nashville, and I did the topic was grave robbing and galvanism, and I gave this 30-minute spiel. I think it was in Knoxville about grave robbing. You know, the ins and outs, what they did, how they did it, the money they make, and the presidents involved, all stuff like that. And at the very end, I'm like, hey, tonight come by, Evergreen Cemetery, 10 o'clock, and I'll be the hands-on demonstration. And these ladies on the front are like, what? And I'm just kidding. There is no demonstration. But still.
But would you do it?
No, Lord, no.
Would you think about it?
No.
What if it was temptation? What if somebody tempted you with like a handful of cash?
No. I did find a busted open grave last spring in Alabama.
Really?
I was finishing up my Alabama book, Ghost Stories and Graveyard Tales Alabama, and there's a story in Montgomery where there was this businessman. He's a wealthy guy. I think it's like the late 1700s. And every couple of years, they would go to his coffin and find the skeleton propped up because the urban legend was that he was really wealthy. And when he died, they buried a treasure map in his coffin with him that led to his gold. So every couple of years, someone would dig him up looking for that map. And so it's a silly story, but I wanted to tell it because it was kind of funny. And I wanted to get some pictures of the cemetery. I was driving through Montgomery, and I walk over, taking some pictures of the cemetery. It's a beautiful old cemetery. It's really old. And I'm walking through, I look down at my feet, and there's a busted open grave.
Oh, wow.
In the spring of 2024.
Holy cow. And
you look a little closer, there's a human jawbone. It's in the books. I got the picture. It's kind of grisly if you're into that kind of stuff.
And you took those pictures?
I took them, and I sent them to the mayor's office.
Holy
And
cow.
I emailed them and said, hey, you guys, this is what's going on. And it's Westcott Cemetery in Montgomery. And they said, hey, we'll send somebody over there Monday. And I hadn't been back to verify, but surely to God they would have sealed that up.
You would think. I can't believe you ran up on that, and you're being that heavy into that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and you can tell it's like a stone slab over the top of it, and someone picked up a headstone and dropped it and broke into the grave because the original headstone is right there. So it's a big hole, and you look down, there's a jawbone. There's part of a spine I saw. Yeah, it's...
Oh, my God. And that had nothing to do with the guy with the map.
The guy? No. This is just something that I'm not sure if someone... My theory was, because I think I saw a jacket in there. I'm wondering if it was just cold and a homeless person wanted somewhere to sleep. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But either way, I just hope they fix it. That's what I was really...
They do,
yeah.
too. Well, man, get back to your story.
So, Mr. Doebke, he got off and he went on to being a privy cleaner, vault cleaner, cleaning up outhouses. Well, years later, after all his legal trouble was behind him, he swore off his days as a grave robber. He told the press that he was, walking the straight and narrow. He was done with being a ghoul. So he admitted to not only digging up his brother, but he also admitted to digging up his mother, too.
Oh, my word.
According to Mr. Doebke in this interview he gave later on in life, he heard medical students were digging up bodies in Calvary Cemetery around the same time she was buried. So a lot of times, the students would go out and dig up the bodies themselves because they'd have one to, instead of paying for it, you go just do it and save some money.
Right.
I mean, I'm all about saving money, but I'm not sure if I'd go dig up my own corpse.
I wouldn't.
But that's what these guys did. Well, Ernest had heard about this, and he was all distraught, and he wanted to go see if his mama was still in her final resting place. So he went out there around the middle of the night. He dug 8 feet down, and he worked for a little while, and he pulled the coffin all the way to the surface. And fortunately for Ernst, Mrs. Doebke was still there inside the coffin. Or so he says. But he lowered her back down and reburied her. He didn't take any hair this time, at least that he admitted to anyway. So the reporter who he spoke to asked him, said, hey, are you done with grave robbing for money? And Ernest said, oh, no, I'm done with that. I refuse to do it ever again. I learned my lesson, blah, blah, blah. So after that interview, the reporters went to the medical colleges, started talking to the administrators, looking at the books. And it's funny because Ernest Doebke was on the books as receiving payments from the medical colleges. and he was billing them for quote unquote vault cleaning.
Ah.
So was he still raiding the graveyards, kind of, under the table, or was he actually going there and cleaning up the privies and cleaning the vaults?
It's close.
But something I thought was kind of funny, he told a reporter, "There are tricks in all trades, and it takes a man doubly tricky to cheat the living and the dead."
Oh my!
Yeah, that's something kind of fun.
That's cool. Well, that sounds like a sickness, almost an addiction. To dig his brother up and get in trouble, get out of that, and then go dig his mother up.
Yeah, I mean, but you got to think though, during Reconstruction, man, times were tough,
Right.
and people's always trying to make a dollar, and he just, like I said, you can make like $1,000 in one night in our money.
Right.
Like there's a story out of Cincinnati. There's a guy named Old Man Dead, William Cunningham. I got a book called Old Man Dead. I wrote about Cunningham, and I found this old newspaper article. They were talking about him after he died. One night he dug up 16 bodies.
Wow.
16. If you get like almost $1,000 in our money, that's a good little chunk.
Yes, sir.
So the next morning, he goes to the college. He's looking for the professor. Because what you did was you would dig them up, you put them in a bag, and you drop them in this slot or this drop box or this chute. Then you go by the next morning. Once the school is in operation, you go get your pay. So Old Man Dead William Cunningham shows up next morning, and he's just licking his chops. He's going to go to the Mineral Springs Resort for the weekend. He's about to cash out. 16 bodies.
Mm.
So he's there walking the halls, and one of the professors sees him. Cunningham, come here. Yes, sir. How you doing? Good morning, sir. So happy to see you.
Where's my check?
What are you doing? What do you mean, sir? They all had smallpox.
Oh.
Take them back.
Oh, gosh.
So Cunningham has to go back that night. They stuffed 16 cadavers into 3 barrels and put them in the back of a wagon for him. And he had to go back to the cemetery.
Oh, what a drag.
And they said that when the sexton came in the next morning to the cemetery, he didn't rebury them. He just turned the barrels up over the fence and just dropped 16 cadavers there, butt naked, in the burying ground there for everybody to see.
Gosh. Oh man, that's crude.
And I'll probably do a show on Cunningham one day because he's such a fascinating guy.
It sounds like
Yeah, I actually wrote a screenplay based off like the last couple months of his life because the guy was just a maniac.
That would make a great play.
Yeah, make a great movie if I can find somebody. I'll talk about this. I got a book called Old Man Dead, and I have a screenplay I've adapted from it. I got a producer. I don't want to say too much about it, but he has a lot of interest in making this.
Okay.
But just the financing, you get to have money to make a movie, and
Well, I'll act in it for cheap.
you will. Can you go dig up some bodies so we can cash out and
Absolutely.
raise the funds for the financing?
Why, yes.
That's the hard part with making movies. I've got some screenplays that I've got interest in, but just the funding.
Now I know a lot of people that act dead.
Yeah. But anyway, so back to Ernest Dobke. So the Prince of Body Snatchers passed away on May 10th, 1910, and he was buried at St. Peter's Cemetery in section 907, grave number 4 of that burying ground.
Oh, wow.
So you think Mr. Dobke, he's still there, or you think somebody dug him up too?
So he was buried in the very cemetery that he dug up.
Let's see here. St. Peter's Cemetery, I think he was buried where he had the 10-acre lot.
Okay.
So he was buried over there. I think his mother and brother married somewhere else, but he was buried there where he had
You cleared that up.
the plot where he... And I've seen his headstone. It's a very simple headstone.
Right.
But it says Ernest Dobke, or Ernst Dobke, however you want to pronounce it.
This is incredible stuff, man. It's so interesting.
It's wild and weird, man. I tell you. And like, one day I'll do something on the Harrison Horror, and that will just melt your brain. Like, if you got some time tonight, Google the Harrison Horror, and just be prepared to go down this rabbit hole that you're not ready for.
Right.
Because it involves presidents, involves British spies. It will just blow you away. But anyway, so we're winding down here. So,
We are.
yeah, I mean, Halloween's coming up here. What is this? Early September. We got about 6-7 more weeks. Yeah, the Ghost of Gallatin Haunted Tour. I've got the new book, Southern Ghost Stories, Tennessee Tales 2, which is ghost stories from small towns, Columbia, Mount Juliet, Clarksville. There's all kinds of legends, small town stuff, every corner of Tennessee. I got the Resurrection of Knox Martin, the new book. It talks about Galvanism, the Frankenstein story out of South Nashville. And that's a lot of fun, too. But this has been a fun show, and it's always good to talk about Gray Robin, my good buddy, Lonesome Lee Bogan, the Blood Drinker.
I'm going to need a copy of that Tennessee book.
Okay, I'll get you one.
Got to have it.
Yeah, we'll do some stories from there here in the next few weeks. But maybe next week, let's go to Chicago, do some Chicago ghost stories. What do you think?
Windy City. Let's
Yeah.
Home of CM Punk.
And if you got some questions, the Facebook page, Southern Ghost Stories, or Instagram, Southern Ghost Stories, hit us up there and let us know what you want to hear, questions, comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Sounds good. Alan, we'll see you next time.
Yes, sir. Been
right
fun.
Here on WQKR.